Neymar Jr. had everything. He possessed a fortune that could buy entire nations, a name whispered in every corner of the earth, and a collection of medals that most athletes would give their lives for. But if you look into his eyes today, you don't see a champion. You see the heavy, suffocating weight of a man who tried to outrun his own destiny. For over a decade, Neymar was the chosen one. He was the heir to the throne of Brazilian soccer, blessed with feet that didn't just kick a ball, they made it sing. He was supposed to be the greatest of all time. Instead, he became the ultimate tragedy of modern sports, the eternal prince who broke his body and his reputation, only to realize he was born in the shadow of an unkillable god. To understand how a prince becomes a prisoner, you have to go back to a night where time itself seemed to stop. March 8, 2017. The Camp Nou Stadium in Barcelona is shaking. It's a roaring coliseum of 96,000 souls witnessing the impossible. Barcelona needs 3 goals in 7 minutes to survive against Paris Saint-Germain. In this moment of pure chaos, the world looks to the Argentine god, Lionel Messi. But Messi isn't the one leading the charge, it's Neymar. In a display of pure, unadulterated genius, he scores a flawless free kick. He demands the ball for a high-pressure penalty and buries it. Then, in the dying seconds, he lofts a perfect assist that completes the greatest comeback soccer has ever seen. It was his masterpiece. The night he finally grew up. But as the final whistle blows, the dream turns into a brutal reality. Neymar turns around expecting the world to be looking at him. Instead, he sees a single iconic image flashing across every screen on Earth, Lionel Messi standing on an advertising board hoisted up like a messiah by the fans. The stadium is chanting one name, and it isn't Neymar's. In his absolute finest hour, when he did everything perfectly, the story didn't change. He realized a terrifying truth. No matter how high he flew, he was trapped in a system where he would always be the supporting actor. Staying in Barcelona meant historical invisibility. To become the king, he had to leave the kingdom. To understand the desperation of what happened next, you have to understand Neymar's upbringing. In Brazil, he wasn't just a soccer player, he was a cultural savior. From the age of 14, his life was a map leading to one destination: becoming better than Pelé. Joining Barcelona was supposed to be his education under a master, but it quickly became an emotional golden cage. He loved Messi, but a prince cannot be crowned while the king still rules the world's imagination. This brings us to the summer of 2017, the moment the world fractured. Driven by the ghost of that night against PSG, Neymar made a choice that changed the sport forever. He accepted a staggering $263 million buyout to join Paris Saint-Germain. It wasn't just a transfer, it was a declaration of war. He was running toward total freedom, determined to prove he could carry an entire franchise on his back and finally claim the Ballon d'Or. But as he stepped onto the cold fields of the French League, a hidden roadblock emerged. He had escaped the man, but he could not escape the legend. Every single game, every penalty, and every flashy dribble was no longer judged against his opponents. It was judged against what Messi was doing hundreds of miles away in Spain. The media didn't see Neymar the artist. They saw a rebel trying to prove a point. And then the universe introduced a cruel twist. Just as Neymar was finding his rhythm in the Parisian autumn, a younger, faster, homegrown prodigy arrived in the locker room, Kylian Mbappe. Suddenly, Neymar wasn't escaping a shadow. He was being swallowed by a new one. The Parisian dream, built on defiance, began to crack under a cycle of physical and emotional torment. Neymar had fled to France to be the center of the universe, but the reality of the French league was cold and violent. Defenders, unable to stop his brilliant, taunting Samba style, resorted to breaking him. Season after season, right as the biggest games of the year approached, his feet would fail him. The prince spent his prime years not lifting trophies under golden lights, but weeping on hospital beds. His tears were broadcasted to a mocking global audience that labeled him fragile, dramatic, and overpaid. The joy was being drained out of him, replaced by the mechanical need to prove his critics wrong. Then came the ultimate psychological irony. In the summer of 2021, the very shadow he had sacrificed his happiness to escape arrived at his doorstep. Lionel Messi signed for Paris Saint-Germain. The universe forced them back together, but the dynamic had changed. Neymar, once the dazzling young heir, willingly handed over his kingdom. He offered his iconic number 10 jersey back to the master. It was a profound act of love, but also a quiet admission. The war to outrun the god was over. They smiled, they played, but the spark was gone. The fierce, burning ambition to stand alone at the top of the mountain had been replaced by a weary acceptance of second place. This is where we cross the bridge into a universal human truth. The tragedy of Neymar is not that he lacked the talent to surpass Messi. It's that he fell victim to a toxic modern delusion, the idea that being the best is the only way to have a successful life. We live in a culture that demands absolute supremacy. We are told that being one of the greatest to ever live is a failure if someone else happens to be a god. Neymar tore his life apart, abandoned a beautiful brotherhood in Barcelona, and endured years of psychological misery, all to chase a trophy that was never guaranteed. He broke his body trying to solve an impossible math equation, how to outshine a legacy that had already rewritten history. The journey that began with the promise of a global crown ends in the quiet exile of Riyadh. Stripped of his European ambitions, Neymar's final chapter unfolds far away from the historical coliseums of the sport. The world calls this a failure. They see a waste of talent. But if you look closely at the footage of him today, playing on a dusty field with his kids or juggling a ball barefoot on a beach in Brazil, you see something that Paris and Barcelona could never buy him. The heavy, fake smile of a multi-million-dollar brand is gone. He is no longer playing a character. He isn't the savior of Brazil. He isn't the billion-dollar marketing machine. He isn't the prince waiting for a crown. He is finally just Neymar. And perhaps learning how to be happy in the shadows of the spotlight was the hardest lesson he ever learned. And maybe walking away from that fight was his greatest triumph of all. Because when the stadiums go dark and the arguments finally fade, history will remember the god, but it will always cherish the artist. Neymar didn't follow the script. He wrote his own, and in doing so, he gave us his greatest performance of all.